CNBC. All right, so good afternoon. Let me get the mic in place because that didn't work last time. So good afternoon. We'll get started a little bit in a second, but this is Steve Mazzacane. It's the Steve Mazzacane podcast. Wait for some people to come on. We'll talk today about sports betting, a little bit about Black Lives Matter, the impact on the election, a few articles today in Politico. And any questions, any comments, anything people want to know or ask, please do. The more people we have commenting and some questions we get feedback is helpful. I know some people text me directly. That's fine. But if you can post your message publicly, that may help as well. Allow other people to know what's going on and some questions that they have. But I hope everyone had a great day. It's not a great day outside, but nonetheless, we're here. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to see you logging in. Okay, today, for the first thing we want to talk about more than anything else is today our sponsor is Atticus News Marketing. That's my company. The reason I talked today about marketing with a few clients, I had a lunch with a client, and primarily about what so many companies are doing wrong on social media. And one of the things I talk about with almost every client is that this incessant need to post perfectly looking pictures 3-4 times a day is hurting them. If you are a restaurant, if you are a small business trying to create a social media presence, just a few quick tips before we get into our topics today. Post less and post better. Make your social media site a news site. Make it one that connects with people. People need to go to, people want to read, they interact with. I ask myself a very simple question before posting something on my behalf or the behalf of any client I have, and that is this post something a person has appreciated learning? And do they want to share it with somebody else? And if that's the case, do it. Just posting beautiful pictures 3 times a day is not a social media strategy. I call that ego marketing. That's marketing to the owner of the business. See how great your business looks? See how amazing it looks? Who cares? Is it actually reaching people? Is it impacting people? Are they wanting to connect with your business? And that's the only question you should ask. And so people know that I do this podcast. I have the news site, but I also have a marketing company. It's one of the things that we do constantly is teach how to be effective at reaching audiences. And there's a million people out there who will say, I'm a social media expert. And they'll take a bunch of really nice pictures and they'll post them and they'll schedule them, and it's great. It doesn't get you anything. If you're looking to really reach people and create a connection with them, that's a real involved social media strategy. It's much more than just nice pictures. So I could say thank you for today's sponsor, but it happens to be my company, and I own Atticus News Marketing. But back on to our political stuff, and we'll talk first and foremost about one of my favorite topics on the planet, and that is sports betting. And there's an article in The Current yesterday. I know Sean Scanlon sent it to me this morning. Amazing thing about this article. And the headline is Top Lawmaker Sees Sports Betting in Connecticut a Reality Next Year as Foxwoods and Sports Entertainment Business Announce a Deal. So there's been a deal between Foxwoods and DraftKings. We don't know the details of this deal yet, but the fact that there is one means at least the casinos are looking to do something. But the first thing that's interesting about this title is, I remember when Sean Scanlon first ran, and he's moved up the ranks. He's become well respected. He's respected on a very bipartisan level. But when the headline of the Hartford Courant says Top Lawmaker in reference to Sean Scanlon, it's kind of an accomplishment. So good for him. Congratulations to Sean on that accomplishment. Fred, thanks for joining us. I thought of Fred yesterday. I posted a meme on my personal page, something like what has 10 actors, 2 storylines, and whatever. And it's like 600 Hallmark movies. And Fred Russo is a big Hallmark fan. So it's kind of truth to that. It's always the same actors. In any event, that's a big deal for Sean. I mean, to Top Lawmaker suddenly. And we remember when he was first running the first time, and he certainly has a bright future. But it's an interesting, we'll continue about Sean here, because I'm going to read the first 2 paragraphs of this article in the Hartford Courant. And it says, sports betting will be legal in Connecticut next year, a top lawmaker said Monday, as Foxwoods Resort Casino and DraftKings, a digital sports entertainment business, announced a partnership pitched to raise revenue and revive Eastern Connecticut's economy, both badly damaged by the coronavirus. And here's a quote. Sports betting will be legalized in 2021, said Representative Sean Scanlon, incoming House Chairman of the Legislature's Finance Committee. You can bet on it. So not only did Sean Scanlon get his first top lawmaker mention, he also gave his first official dad joke and saying you can bet on it about sports betting. So well done, Sean, and we will be sure to make fun of you for that for a long time. But this is not a small thing. And, we have Connecticut, as much as we like to consider ourselves progressive and a blue state, and we're ahead on all these, rights and what have you, things like marijuana and sports betting have been on the docket forever, and we have not been able to get them through. Everybody's promised to get them through. We have just not been able to. And part of the reason for that is these long-term deals we have with casinos. And they have fought against anything. And the biggest issue is going to be, will this end up in court? So you have two different organizations or groups that can want to sue you on this. If you give exclusive rights to the casinos, there's a million other companies out there that take sports bets that are going to say, wait a minute, that's going to violate capitalism laws and take a market away from us. If you say you're completely open to anybody and we're not going to give it exclusively to casinos, the casinos are going to take you to court and fight you. So does this end up in court in some way, shape, or form? Probably. But the news that Foxwoods is working with DraftKings is at least showing us that they have some desire to maybe not go to court. Let's find a path to get this public as quickly as possible. Now, there's a few caveats here. We're going to talk about exclusivity. About, I would say, 6-7 months ago, I wrote an article about exclusivity in sports betting. And that's going to be the real question that I have as this project moves forward. I'm going to change the light here for a second. So what Ned Lamont proposed earlier in March was that we would have some sort of sports betting that would connect with the tribes, but also off-track betting and could be done online. That's fine. That's no problem. The problem with sports betting being exclusive to anyone is that lines on games can change. So to give you a little bit of a rundown on how sports betting works, let's suppose the Giants this week are playing the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, I believe, are 3.5-point favorites. So you can bet $100. Let's put it this way. The Giants would be, let's say you had two teams and they were both even, right? Both have an equal shot to win the game. Both of the odds would be minus 110, which means you have to bet $110. If your team wins, you win 100. That extra 10 goes to the house. That's the vig or whatever. To make things more even, they'll often put a line. So minus 3.5. So we think one team's going to win by 3.5 or 4.5 or 7 or 14 or whatever it is. And they have to win by that margin for you to win the bet. There's all kinds of exotic bets around that. I'm not going to get into that. But what casinos do and bookmakers do is they can manipulate that line. If too many bets come in at minus 7, they may say, wait a minute, let's make it minus 8 so we can get more bets on the other side. The casino wants bets on both sides. So whether it's a bookmaker or a casino or an offshore, what have you, they want money on each side so they don't lose money. They just get their vig. Remember, if they take all these bets and everybody bets on one side and that side wins, they got to pay all those out. If the underdog wins, they make a ton of money. But they want a balance. That's what they want. They want predictability. But when you have, like Vegas, 10 different bookmakers, 10 different companies setting lines, the lines are not always the same. So if you're a bettor, if you are me saying, I want to put $100 on this game, and Caesars has it at minus 7, and Aria has it at minus 6, I want to go from betting the favorite to the minus 6 guy, right? My chances of winning by 6 are better than winning by 7. So I'm going to, checking in from Vegas, confirm you're accurate. Well, I appreciate that, but that's true. The lines are different. And you'll even see significant professional bettors go to Aria and place a bet, then go to Caesars and place a bet based on what sport they are. And what these companies will often do is they want to specialize sometimes in one particular sport. So they'll give you poor lines in one sport and better lines in another sport. So you are shopping. You are price shopping when it comes to sports betting. If you give one company exclusivity, they can set that line at anything, and you're forced to take it. So if you're going to legalize sports betting, one of the things you'd like to do is have people shy away from illegal sports betting. Illegal sports betting is everywhere. There's very few restaurants you can go to where there's not somebody behind the bar that can take a bet. And what happens with illegal sports betting is the sites are set up overseas or in the Caribbean or what have you, and you can bet on a sport. There's no money put in these sites. You have a bookie in person. So you bet 3 or 4 games, you're up $100, you meet your bookie, you get your $100. You bet 3 or 4 games, you're down $100, you meet your bookie, you pay $100. Happens all over the place. Millions of dollars change hands, especially on Sundays. It's completely common. No one's going to go crazy about that. It's life. It happens. You're not going to stop it. But if you're going to pass a law legalizing sports betting, you want to also give some incentive from people who are doing it illegally to do it legally. If we're going to pass a law legalizing marijuana, the whole part of that is that people who are doing it illegally, well, now they buy it legally. So you're never going to stop people completely. Bookies give you credit, right? So if I call a bookie now and say, I want, $10,000 on the Giants this Sunday, I don't got to give them $10,000. I'm just placing the bet. If I lose, I got to pay it. And if I don't pay it, there's other consequences that we'd rather not discuss right now. But if you're betting online, you're not going to have that. If you go to a casino, place a bet, you give them the cash when you place the bet. So there's always going to be a market for that group of people who are betting large amounts on credit. But for the average bettor, they're going to go to the casino. They'd rather bet legally. But if they don't have any options, if only one place can set that line, you are doing a massive disservice to the consumer. And you're allowing those people to do whatever they want. So if there's a line on the Giants game that's -3.5, and I want to bet the Giants, but the DraftKings in Connecticut or the casino in Connecticut, the Indian tribes in Connecticut set that line at -2, if that's the only option I have, I'm going to go back to those illegal guys. And there's nothing, and this is a basic premise of capitalism, when you have more than one person or group setting lines or setting a price, it goes lower. You have competition. You can fight for it. Often what DraftKings will do or FanDuel will do, what other these companies will do, is to get off the ground, they'll give you phenomenal lines. The Giants what is the line? Let's just, Giants line Sunday versus the Cards. I'm guessing it's 3.5. Oh, here's betting lines. All right. So if you go, you can actually check this. And if you have any question on the accuracy of this, looking at any sports betting site, they'll give you the lines from 5 or 6 different companies. So this is just the money line. I don't really care about the money line. Let me see here. Yeah, they don't have it. So in any event, yeah, I don't know why this site is so difficult. But in general, you can look up all of these and find your different lines from your different bookies. You're gonna choose the best one. If you have access to all of those online, you're definitely going to choose the best one. If you don't, you're not. And so the argument that I made in the article 7-8 months ago, and the argument I'm making now is, it's great to say we're going to legalize sports betting. It's 2.5. Okay, right now the Giants game. It's great to say we're going to legalize sports betting, but if you're giving exclusive rights to anyone, you are doing a disservice to the end user. The people who are most in need of being able to shop around want to do that. And some bookmakers will do better for basketball than football. Some people do better from football than hockey. It depends on what their favorite is. Sometimes the bookmaker is better at setting odds in those leagues. And so that was my advice to Sean Scanlon today when I saw that. Yes, you can bet on it. It's going to be legal. But what does that mean? Are we giving exclusive rights to any one particular bookmaker? And if you're saying only DraftKings can manage this, then maybe you guarantee that DraftKings has rights to can take them from 4 or 5 different places, or that their lines are not significantly different than Caesars, for example, because Caesars isn't going to be crazy and they deal with competition. So if we know that our lines have to match Vegas's lines from Caesars or Aria, whatever bookmakers we want to go to, we know they have competition there. We know the lines aren't going to be crazy out of whack. So if we're going to give, I'd rather not have any exclusivity, but if we're going to give exclusivity, we have to make sure that the lines are tied to a place that has competition in those lines. And it's not just one company that can say, we're going to set this line wherever we want. Then you'd have, the Cards are 2.5-point favorites on the Giants this weekend. And if DraftKings wanted to set that at -4, they could. And if the difference is, if they lose by a field goal, a win versus a loss, it's a big difference. So if there's more questions on sports betting, I can always post that article I posted earlier this year or last year, breaking it down. But that is a significant portion of what I certainly want to see us looking out for. To give you an idea of what we're looking at, Scanlon said it's one of my biggest priorities. Mashantucket Pequot owns Foxwoods and DraftKings said their deal will set a stage for online sports betting ahead of the anticipated launch of legal sports betting in Connecticut. The only question is who sues. Each proposal so far for a law has run aground on the state's compacts with Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun. This is why you don't make compacts that are this long. Same reason we don't make union deals, or we should never make union deals that are as long as we have been. Things change. You guarantee people exclusive rights, you guarantee people a certain amount of money, and you lock it in for 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 years, and times change, and you can never change that. And it's nonsense. It's a stupid plan by the vast majority of political people on Democratic and Republican side. Just going through if they have a number here. Okay, so online gambling and sports betting are projected to generate $175 million in new revenue for the state over 5 years. Not a huge amount of money. That's according to Foxwoods and DraftKings. Rodney Butler, chairman of the Mashantucket Pequots, said the state's share would be $40 to $60 million a year. Okay, this math doesn't make any sense. Let me read this again. Online gambling and sports betting are projected to generate $175 million in new revenue for the state over 5 years. Not per year, over 5 years. Then Rodney Butler, the chairman of the Pequots, said the state's share would be 40 to 60. So at 40 for 5 years, that's $200 million. This doesn't make any sense. Either the current doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're saying it's $175 million a year. I don't know the answer to that, but that's pretty bad math. Since it reopened June 1st after being shut more than 10 weeks, Foxwoods posted revenue that was down nearly $36 million from last year, off 20%. I'm surprised it's only off 20%. All right, so I don't see anything. DraftKings is lined with mobile sports betting in 10 states, more than any other operator in the U.S., the company said. Sports betting fills revenue gaps caused by the damage to Connecticut's economy from the coronavirus. Without highway tolls, which didn't pass, or limited tax revenue linked to plastic bag use, the state faces new options other than what we're proposing. Now, it's interesting. I saw a proposal the other day to add to the gas tax. And I know a lot of people watching this podcast hate the idea of tolls. But to raise the gas tax, which we're going to have to, I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. How could you not buy an electric car? Is there any reason you can probably spend, $10,000 more on an electric car than you would a gas car over the course of those payments make up the difference by not buying gas? It makes no sense that we don't have tolls. It makes no sense that people can have electric cars and get away without paying tolls. Okay, so let's move on to a second topic, and that is Black Lives Matter. Article in Politico today that talks about, and it's from Black Lives Matter co-founder pushes back on Democrats' criticism of defund the police. And I was critical of Lamont early on because they took forever to come out against this. And I absolutely believe this race was closer because of the defund the police aspect. Yes, more African Americans voted, but a higher percentage voted for Trump than 4 years ago. And I can't get past that suburbs especially. Volker, tolls for hybrids and electric cars only. It's not the worst idea in the world. The problem with that is that those against it will say, once those are in place, they're going to be used for everybody. But listen, there is absolutely no reason not to. If you are buying a car in the next year, buy electric. What do we spend on average on gas a year? I fill up, I think it's $35. I have a Honda Accord 3 times a month, something like that. I drive around town, nothing crazy. So $100 a month, $1,200 a year over the course of even a 5-year more, that's $5,000-$6,000. A larger vehicle, you're dropping $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 over 5 years in gas. So if you're going to spend $30,000 on a new car, you could spend $45,000 on a car and it's the same amount because you're going to make up that difference in gas. And if they're going to raise the gas tax, it's even more. It doesn't make any sense to buy any car that's a gas car right now. It doesn't make any sense. My Mustang sounds better. I don't know. What do you mean by that? I don't know what your gas usage on a Mustang is. But it just does. If you're an environmentalist pushing for electric, and by the way, the idea that electric cars are much better for the environment is crap, because they got to build these things. And they're still a disaster for the economy, for the environment when building these things. So there's always this, it's funny. We passed a plastic bag ban, which was stupid in general. It's a feel-good bill. The amount of money we go through shipping plastic bags is monumental, but we don't think that way. And the fuel that boats go through and trucks to package these things and deliver these things is a ton, but we don't think that way. Anyway, have you seen the amount of plastic restaurants are giving out now? Because a lot of them aren't serving on plates. All the takeout is if it's recyclable at all, it has that plastic lining inside. There's plastic there. There's plastic. There's more. It's just crazy, the amount that's going out right now. And we pass these feel-good bills that mean nothing. They're nonsense. They make 10 people feel good about themselves. It didn't help the environment. You saved a turtle. I get it. But it didn't help the environment. We don't look at science or math when these feel-good bills come up. In any event, let's go back to Black Lives Matter. And the reason for this is the claim from the Black Lives Matter founder is that Democrats should not be fighting back on the defund the police movement because Black Lives Matter helped Biden get in office. Now, here's my response to Alicia Garza, who was the co-founder of Black Lives Matter. Democrats had a terrible year. Biden won, and it was closer than it should have been, probably because of Black Lives Matter, because of the fear that people had of defunding the police. I don't know where this idea came from. And by the way, Barack Obama himself criticized this phrase, defund the police. It doesn't make any sense. He said basically it'll alienate people who take it at face value, and it was meant at face value. After they got so much pushback, they said, well, it means reallocating resources. Well, if you're taking resources away from the police and putting it somewhere else, you're defunding the police. I don't care what you call it. But the fact of the matter is, so many of these suburbs were much, much closer or won by Trump over fear of this idea of not having safe communities, of defunding the police, of sending social workers to handle domestic violence disputes. It's nonsense. And at no point did it make any sense. I have been, I have been critical of police officers in the past, but I overwhelmingly support the work they do. Can they be overbearing at times? Yeah. Can they do things wrong? Absolutely. But we are the town we are, and our suburbs are the town they are. And you know what? Even our towns, our inner cities, are much, much safer than they would be otherwise. I support the police and I support Black Lives Matter, but I support the police because Black Lives Matter. Do we want to know what violence would be like in the inner cities without the police? How many Black people would lose their lives to violence in the inner cities without police? This nonsense needs to stop. And this calling out Democrats for fighting back against defund the police, no. If you're Democrats, get with the program. Stop kowtowing to the whim of whatever group, whatever minority group, whatever group at that time yells and screams something. Stand back like we should with every issue. Look at the facts, analyze the facts, decide then if it makes sense. The knee-jerk reaction to support every group, and I will tell you this, seeing anybody walk up the center of Branford with a fuck the police sign, a defund the police sign, while the police are clearing the road for them, is the most absurd thing I've ever seen. I can't, to this day, believe I saw it. And we had a lot of young kids, all races, marching up the street, yelling, fuck the police, the racist, there was a bunch of other stuff against the Branford Police Department. And they didn't care. They didn't think twice about it. They felt good about themselves, yelling nonsense. And nobody could even explain what they were yelling about. They couldn't tell you what if defund and take the money or reallocate money or more money to social services. Nobody there. We had a rally at town hall, and I was asking people, what do you mean by this? Nobody had an answer. They were yelling names of people who were killed at the hands of police. We're in a country of 330 million people, country of hundreds of thousands of police officers who go to work every single day and do their job. When somebody's shooting, they go in while we're running out. And to sit there and say Democrats should be supporting us because we helped you win, you're just an idiot. Because defund the police did not help you win. Biden's not in office now because of defund the police. This race was 10 times closer because of defund the police, because of the idiocy that it implies. People have to get with the program. Safety matters. And to pretend these people who put their lives on their line every day should be defunded is nonsense. And so it's time, and we've talked about this with affordable housing too, but here it's true as well. It's time for Democrats to take the lead in denouncing that garbage. Biden finally did. Late, but he finally did. But it needs to happen on a local level. I'm not talking about in town of Brantford, but I'm talking about people who represent the town at the state level and people who represent us in Hartford and in Washington as well. They're afraid to. You don't see Chris Murphy saying, I disagree with that. It's time we start. We don't see Chris Blumenthal saying, I disagree with defund the police. It's time we start. It's time Biden keep that front and center, and our policemen know that the town and the state and the country and every politician of every party has their back. This stuff has to end. So we'll end on that note today. It's hard. It's hard to cover the police and know the police officers in town and see what they go through every single day. See even what a basic shift is like. They never have any idea what their call is going to be. When they respond to something, they don't know if it's domestic violence or if it's nothing or the person has a weapon, but they go every single time. We can be critical of them. Nothing's saying we can't be critical of any person that's paid by the taxpayers. But to say they should be defunded, to say that their family shouldn't eat because we don't like what they do, or to say that all police are responsible for some bad actors is crazy. Okay, Steve, violent shootings are up significantly in our cities across the country, including Connecticut, since BLM movement began. I do firmly believe that there are police officers, good police officers, who are thinking twice about responding to things. There's no question. And I mean, we see this. There's like almost no tickets being handed out in towns. Some of that has to do with the coronavirus, but I don't care who you are. I mean, I deal with criticism from my job, but this is the nature of the beast, right? If you're a cop and you have people with signs saying, fuck the police, defund the police, that's hard to take, especially in a job where you're putting your life on the line. And so, yeah, these numbers are increasing. And so often what happens, especially Democrats, is that they may not come out and say, I support them. They don't come out and say they don't support them. Now, they have no problem if the issue is not their issue. If it comes to gun rights or something, oh my God, we hate that group, or we hate the NRA, or we hate this group, but we'll never say anything bad about Black Lives Matter. I'll tell you what, an organization that says defund the police, no, not interested. And it's our politicians, our leaders, who need to lead on this. Because when they lead on it and say we're not buying that, it'll go away. They'll only keep saying it as long as it's working. And so if you have a small group of far left group in Washington and in Hartford pushing for this stuff, it'll happen. Do I believe our leaders locally are far left? No. I don't think Sean Shannon, he's left, but not far left. Cohen, a little further left, no question. Far left, no. There's the guy in Hamden who's really crazy far left. I don't know what he is. There's not enough of them to really to change anything in the state level, but we need elected officials to stand up and stop giving the nonsense here. I support cops, but we need some change. Okay. But yelling defund the police or supporting an organization that yells it in their face is just as bad. Not worth being a cop these days. Be a fireman, they give you a bet. Yes, that's true. And both I have a lot of respect for. Again, when they have fires, when they have danger, they're going towards it. We're going away, the rest of us. So I will have enormous respect for them. That said, especially for police officers, they have an additional level of responsibility. They have to be held accountable. Do I think that police bill held them accountable? Not really. And hopefully in this, and I'm pushing for sports betting and a lot of other laws that are going to happen come January, but I hope opening that law up and making some changes to that law is one of the things we're focused on. Okay, guys, it is 4:32, so I want to thank you again for joining me. I want to thank so many of you for, it's like every day we're getting emails, and I really appreciate it. If you can, share this, let other people know, spread the word. Be doing a favor, for helping me a lot, and I want to grow this as much as we can. We do have kind of a plan in place for the next, to start off January, really growing the audience. We'll see how that works. And but I appreciate all of you guys tuning in and commenting and questions, and we will talk tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, guys.